We are on tour at the moment. My partner Gloria and I, we're on tour at present, travelling around the UK to introduce people to this thing called the challenges of food. So the tour is called Fork the System for a reason. Okay. Line up tonight is Andrew Munro is going to speak first for about 15-20 minutes on electroculture. For those who don't know what that is rocket science. It's something that we introduced at our farm, and it just blew my head away because it went against everything that I knew, understood, or believed in horticulture. So Andrew will talk about that. Thanks to the guy. Sorry, your name? Jav. For playing tonight. Donations are more than welcome for him. So after Andrew, we're going to have the legend Andrew Bridgen, then myself. Yes, come on, you can try harder. Then there'll be myself, and then we will have the other guy at the back, David Baggett, who thinks he's entitled to wear a bowler hat as well, to do an announcement about this. Okay? All good? Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Munro.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. So you won't know me, maybe some of you do. My position in all of this is to help bring back the soil biome. Simple. So for a year now, I've been involved on this train, and for 5 years prior to all of that, as many of us in this room, I was trying to find my new train. I was a health coach in New Zealand when it all happened, and I've been involved in health and well-being all my life, as well as being a plumber. And obviously, what happened. My health coaching turned from the individual man-woman and the isolationism of trying to help an individual man-woman feel better, be better, to realising, and stupid to say it now, I've actually realised it.
That better?
Yeah. Well, no, you still need them.
Okay. So realising that if we want to be healthy, we don't want to look at the individual gut biome, for example, which we would have always done, or I did, as well as other things. We want to look at Mother Gaia's biome, do we not? Pretty simple, right? And aren't we an extension of that biome? Aren't we a cell of the earth? Yeah? That idea I like very much. That came to me on Pam Gregory's recent interview, a cell of the earth. So if we are an extension, a cell of the biome, a cell of Mother Gaia's biome, a part of her, if we focus our attention on healing her, do we not then get healthy? So before I go into electroculture, geotherapy, microbiology, or a little bit of what I know about it and how it involves this, power towers, ancient megaliths and menhirs, before I go into all of that, let's recognize number one, if you have an installation that I would call an electroculture installation in your garden, you are healing your household. You are creating an energetic island of bioharmonization. Okay? Put that at number one. So in 1920, some of you may know this, in 1920, a gentleman called Justin Etienne Christoflo created the world's first electroculture patent. It's alive to this day. By 1936, he'd filed 16. Did anyone know about that? No. Between 1920 and 1925, he'd sold 1 million apparatus globally. 1 million. Anyone hear about that? No. He died in 1937. We think he sold another 2 million between 1926 and 1937. We're not sure. By 1945, and the war effort, and all the copper that was sitting on a 7-meter pole at the end of not every, but a lot of farmers' fields, this massive, massive piece of copper, which was yay wide and yay tall, possibly taller, was sat there at the end of every field. And of course, what would have happened to it? It would have been ripped down and turned into a shell or a bullet, right? Or some kind of armory. And it got landed in Germany or God knows where, right? That's what happened to electroculture. And yet there was multiple millions of installations. This is from the Canberra Library in Australia. This is an original pamphlet. And at the back of the pamphlet is an order form to buy your apparatus for £6. So this was the advertising. I just want to send it round. Would you mind? Have a quick look, everybody. So we know that there is a protocol. It's a science of some 270 years. 1749 in the modern day goes back to Frenchman, Abbe Nobel, and another Abbe Berthelon in 1781. By the 1780s, they'd figured it all out. Etheric electricity, yes, that word, etheric electricity is a thing and can be captured regardless of its potentiality, which is in the thousands of volts. Every meter, we've got 100 volts potential. We can collect millivolts, absolutely, and that's all we need. And we drive it back into the ground, following the protocol that is now 105 years old. No changes other than slight adaptations with the new materials that we use. Secondly, so that's the modern day version of the antenna patent that is in there. In the first 10 pages, you'll see a picture of it. See if someone can find that picture and send that round, eh? There's a picture of the antenna. You might have it there, actually, or is it? That's the installation with the antenna on top. That's fine. Yes. Secondly, we then go back a few more thousand years and we start studying the lost art of ancient megaliths. We're all fascinated by those, right? I am. I'm really fascinated by them. I read that as bedtime reading because it really sort of inspires you. So many ancient civilizations from Central America, South, North, Egypt, of course, but Russia, Siberia, you know, they're everywhere, right? India, Indonesia, they're everywhere. There are ancient structures everywhere, and they're all using either ley lines, seismic fault lines, magnetic disruption or discontinuation points, where gamma goes down significantly. Massive one in Connecticut, for example, big vein of hematite comes through the landscape. And what happens? The rock is cut clean off. If you get to that point and you take your dowsing rods, you stand in front of this hematite vein, and this happens. It's insane. And of course, folklore, and it was, of course, very, very powerfully connected to the Indian communities as well. So these sites are all over the world. We use those specific sites. We can find them in microscopic forms, in the forms of vortexes and geopathic stress points. Did anyone know, for example, that there's an electric grid on the Earth every 2 by 2.5 meters called a Hartmann grid? And every 2.25 meters, east, west, north, south, you have a vortex, a male or a female vortex. Well, we find those for you, or a dowser that you know will, and you place a power tower on those. Now, this is just a home-sized power tower. This is something we use in small gardens, or you would use in your home. Ideally, you want to find these locations with your dowsing rods to locate, like the ancient builders would have done, a specific energetic point. You can find a large vortex, a 4-ring vortex, very, very powerful. You place these power towers in these positions, and then you exemplify the energetics of your natural environment. And that power tower, as Mark will attest to, is the central feature to anything and all that we do. Forget the aerial. The aerial is very important. It adds electromagnetism. That's the final nail in the coffin. But prior to that, we want energy. We want biophotons in the soil, your power tower. It will draw them in. It will re-emit them. You then add the same rocks, which is essentially volcanic rocks of a certain type, crystal clear quartz, various types of quartz, in fact, but very importantly, silicon dioxide. I'm sure most of us in this room will know that crystal clear quartz or silicon dioxide silica is programmable. Harry Oldfield in the 80s, the famous English professor, he proved very much so that you could measure crystal clear quartz, you could measure silica, you could measure the piezoelectric activity coming from it. Piezoelectricity comes from any rock, quite frankly, and quartz, under stress, that is, under a stress or a squeeze, quartz is 50% of the Earth's crust. It's everywhere. The basalt that we use in our projects is 56% quartz. You can see the quartz in it. So we want to add fabulous, fabulous mineral density to the soil. We want that to be programmed and charged by us, by our consciousness. 50% of the story is the protocol. 50% of the story is you and your level of consciousness and your ability to communicate that to the mother, which is this stuff. This is what Silicon Valley is all about, is it not? So we, as human beings, as man, we recognize that we have an ability to communicate with our Earth now. I think we all know that. I think we know that we're trying to be removed from that ability. So as we step back in time, we've rediscovered, I haven't, a community in Italy has, France, America, there's this sort of application going on in some kind, we're not sure exactly. We definitely know 10,000 hectares in Europe. We presume more than 20 with the amount of people doing it and the peripheral communities that have come from it. But England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland is doing nothing. Nothing. For some reason, we're in the mouth of the beast, all right? We're in the mouth of the wolf here in England, are we not? Do we all know that? We all know that, don't we? In Italy, they are in the house of the wolf. Here, we're in the jaws. We're in the jaws, aren't we? As it was expressed to me last night by a gentleman. And we've been held back. We've been held back far too long. We've been far too obedient. So we must catch up with the Italian community that has 15 years of evidential proof of increased yields, of increased soil biome from 10% on average, which is what I'm testing our English soil at currently. We test it with an orgone measuring device. We test 10% on average soil biome. No wonder we're all sick. With these applications, evidentially, I've seen it with my own eyes. Absolutely, I tell you now, we can increase the soil biome within 3 to 5 years back to self-regenerative levels. So, knowing all that, do you believe me? Do you believe what I'm saying? Yeah? You believe it possible? Because if you do believe it possible, it's possible, right? If you are the pessimist and you take on a project, you'll sabotage that. You'll infuse your pessimism into that silica and you'll sabotage your own results. So like every good gardener, like every good farmer always ever did, we love every time we place our feet on the ground, don't we? We love every time we put our hands in the dirt, every time we pick that potato, every time we take that sweet pea or that fresh bean. We love it, don't we? And we don't love the pests, do we? No? Would you believe me if I said, with this, you'll change the frequency of your plants, you will remove and eradicate completely your pest cycles. We won't have that conversation. We don't have that conversation. We're not biodynamic farmers. We use the calendar, of course. But we're not biodynamic farmers. We're electroculture or energetics gardeners. We don't have pest conversations because they don't exist in our world. Do you believe that? It's real. It's real. I've seen it with my own eyes, saw it with my own project last year. I was the very first project in this country for some weird reason. But here I am, presenting what my colleague of some 7 years, he's been involved in this, he's Italian, Francesco. You might be fortunate enough to meet Francesco one day. And Charlotte, who is my other colleague. And he's been screaming from the rooftops for 7 years. It's literally pulled his hair out completely. But here we are, we're doing it. It's not just about growing food. It's not just about that anymore. It's about rejuvenating the biome back to where it was and giving it those levels that it once had pre-industrialized revolution. Ancient oak forest floor soil biome levels. Who's put their hands in the floor under an ancient oak recently? Ever. Ever. We'll start with ever, but not so much recently, right? I found a very important site in Norfolk. I don't really think I should share it because it's very, very powerful. But if I said this, if I gave you a hint, an old man, he told me about it, and I trust him. When you think of Norfolk and the Iceni tribe in particular, you think of somebody, don't you? I'm pretty sure I know where she's buried. And I've found the oak, and the hairs are standing up, and I've sat under the oak, and I put my hands in the soil. And I'm telling you now, when you go onto that site, there is a huge vortex for a start. You are in reverence to something. And I was definitely being watched, and I've been there 4 times. It's so powerful. And that's about 20 minutes from my home in Norfolk. And when we put our hands in that soil, we feel carbon, we see carbon, then we see a bit more rotted down carbon. And you get to about maybe here before you get the humus, the real soil, and then it's black. But you can put your hands in up to your second knuckles very easily, not like in your local farm field, right, where it's all clayey and thick. And that is the soil that we're going to replicate with you. Okay, so the pretty English garden with the soil finish and no weeds, that's gone from your mind. It's gone, okay? Clean lines, clean corners, clean weed, gone. We're going to encourage the activator herbs because that's what we call them now. We're going to ferment them wherever we can. We're going to make compost teas, definitely. And we're going to cover everything in carbon. We're going to give everything a duvet, okay? And that's going to moderate, and I'm sure a lot of us know this, it's going to moderate the temperature, it's going to moderate the moisture. It's never going to get too dry, it's never going to get too wet because of it. And the soil is completely different. Completely different. Not only the potato, the yield, the taste, the structure under a microscope, but the soil feels different. For example, my project last year, the electroculture plot, all I needed to use was my hand. The other control plot, I had to use a little hand shovel. I couldn't get deep enough. It was too claggy with just my hand. It's completely different. It's very wet. Whereas the real deal is like the ancient forest floor. So as Victor Schauberger said, one of the amazing rules of his, the soil never sees the sun. Everyone get that? Okay. So multiple fields of study, not rocket science. It is my goal. This is where I need your help as I follow Mark around the country, as I do my bit to get this into the ground and making a difference this year. Because to be honest with you guys, there's 15 years of evidential proof in Italy and France. I am sick of seeing pictures of Italy. Okay. I've been twice in the last 6 months. Beautiful. But for some reason, us English folk, we're a bit stubborn. We don't travel without taking our culture, and we somehow don't see that an Italian cultivation is anything to do with us, do we? I kind of don't. I've seen it, and actually, I want to see it myself here in England. So we're 6 months in. There is some evidence from my project last year. There is some evidence already with anyone that started. Mark had massive changes on his farm starting in October last year. Sadly, that's had to go. It's now got a new guardian looking after that project. And it's been split into about 7 different projects, which is wonderful, right? So you'll get babies from it, which is fabulous. I've got some of your garlic and potatoes going in on Monday, potatoes, with a new bokashi compost that I've fermented with all this bacteria. There's some bacteria over there, guys. I was going to bring it, but it's just too many things to carry. And it's fermented bacteria from energetic environments from southern Italy. It's so powerful. You've got to use it. You can't buy it on the shop shelves, guys. You cannot buy stuff this strong. It's so powerful. It's 10 times more potent than its cousin that you can buy on the shop shelves. Dr. Heger's EM1 recipe you may have come across. So, as I was saying before, I want to end on this. We need your help for those that are interested, those growers or farmers that are out there, however big or small, who want to help take on projects, tiny ones, or actually big projects, to help us essentially showcase within the next 12 months that England can do this, that we can do this, that we're not just going to grow food and struggle. We're not going to struggle. We're not going to struggle. And I know it can be achieved. So I'm speaking to inordinate amounts of people now. My phone has just gone off its rocker this last week. It's really picked to a point where people are interested. So we can very easily give you kits, sell you kits, get you started. This is my bread and butter, by the way. This is my professional life as well as my spiritual. This is everything for me. This is a 5D business environment for me, and I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And my wife is already telling me when I go on holiday in a few weeks, I can't use my phone. All right, I can't take my laptop. She put the phone down on me. I don't know what to say. It's not going to happen. I'll take a day off. I'll take an afternoon off, but there's too much to do because there's people coming in all the time. And I want some of you in this room to be some of those people that will take on some big stuff and help us roll this out. So what say I? What say you guys? Yeah. Give it a go, some of you? Yeah? Well, if you do want to give it a go, come and grab a card. If you're very, very keen, please don't waste my time. I've got too much to do. If you're very keen, I will write my private mobile number down for you. We can communicate. Best way to communicate with me is WhatsApp message me. Okay? Thereafter, there's some forms. There's only a few left over there, but I can send you them via email. Well, I will say it this way. Rather than me chase you, please chase me. Would you do that? And if you do ever write an email down for me, please make sure I can read it. Okay? Right, so I'm about to finish. Is there a room for a question? One question. Make sure it's a good one. Who's got a question? Anybody with a question?
Yes.
Andrew.
Right. Andrew, I was watching a program a few months ago, fascinated by they found some black soil in the Amazon rainforest. They've got no idea how they created it. Very, very fertile. They think it's linked to the Mayans, and they try and grab it and you can grow anything in it. But they've got no idea how it got there.
Yeah, we've heard about this. We've been talking about the Amazon a little bit, haven't we, here and there? Yeah. So, yeah, we believe pre-civilization, right? So there's ancient cities hidden under the ground there, we know. So we think the inside story that I've heard from communities in Italy, for example, are that it became over-fertile, extremely powerfully fertile. So arguably, if we could test that with my machine, I would argue it'd be upwards of 90% plus biome. It might be off the scale, who knows? It could be something superhuman, right? Or super earthly. But that's what we're maybe not talking about that level, but what we are talking about is bringing back a biome that you might at least think, well, it's kind of near it, that is very potent. If you put your finger on my machine, you will read 75% on average. The soils and waters that I place on my machine are 10% on average. That tells me that the life force energy in that soil is 10%, and the life force energy in us is 75. That means we've probably got 70 millivolts per cell in our cells, not 100. So we're hanging on in there, right? We can't be killed. We're doing pretty well, but we're on our arse. We really are. The soil is, okay? So for me, the soil, she's my mistress, she's my mother, she's my father. If I put my attention to her, she heals me. Benito. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Second speech is done to the audience, so I think you did well tonight. Give them a round of applause, guys. The next ceremony really needs knowing. No, I don't need this ceremony guy. Andrew Bridgen, legend.
Thank you, Mark. Well, it's great to be back at the Riddings amongst friends. Most of you have heard me speak before, so I'm not going to give you the normal spiel. I've only got half an hour, so we'll talk about what's going on currently in our country and in our politics. I would say that it's a sign of how the mighty fall that tonight I'm Mark Byford, the Bowlerhat Farmers Warm-Up Act. But I don't mind because he was my warm-up act last night when we were speaking in Burnley. In the last couple of weeks, you may have seen on my social media, I went to go and see Tommy Robinson in Wood Hill prison in Milton Keynes. It was fascinating because they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't tell you anything about it. But Jeff Taylor, if you know him on YouTube, he is a journalist, but but Jeff Taylor's not his real name, so he went under his real name to the prison, and they never asked him to sign. They're not really that smart, are they, at the prison, really? And this week I went to go and see Alex Belfield, who's in Foss Way prison in Leicester, not far away from where I live. I find it slightly worrying that 5 years ago I didn't know anybody in prison, but now I know quite a lot of people in prison. And the worrying thing is that Keir Starmer has given another 7% discount to the hardened criminals in our prisons to clear another 3,000 places, so he can put another 3,000 people who post hurty words on social media into prison or threaten us with that this year. I think the state of our politics is absolutely lamentable. I mean, we haven't got a democracy. We have got a dictatorship with Starmer, with his stonking majority for a minority of the vote at the election. 32% of the vote, 60-odd% of all the MPs, and he's certainly delivering for his masters, and they are certainly not us. He's working for. You'll notice that after I was hoofed out of Parliament, despite the fact that the evidence of the vaccine harms ever increasing, the DNA content is confirmed across the world. You've got the Slovakian government carried out under the very brave Prime Minister Fico. It's spelt Fico, but it's pronounced Fico. The man who said he was going to, when he got into power, was going to have a full investigation into the corruption that happened in his country during the pandemic. The PPE scandal, he had the same as over here, the masking, the social distancing, and of course the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. And also he said he certainly wasn't going to be joining the WHO pandemic agreement, and then he got shot 4 times. A very, very brave man. He's back. He's announced that they're carrying out on a full investigation, and it was so damning for the vaccines that he got his minister, who's a doctor, put out an emergency statement 2 weeks ago, and he made a statement this week. All of this has been passed to Robert Kennedy at the in America, running health in America. And I will remind you that when they threw me out of the Conservative Party in, I think it was April 2023, not one of my friends who I'd been in Parliament for 12 years contacted me to say they were sorry, or do you want to go for a drink or anything. Nobody. But within an hour of the announcement going out on BBC News, I got a phone call from a US presidential candidate on my mobile, and it was Robert Kennedy Jr., and he said, "I'll stand with you, Andrew." And he's now in charge of health. And good people recruit good people. And I think we can all see that bad people recruit bad people. Robert Kennedy Jr. has recruited Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, a Stanford scientist, to be head of the National Institute for Health. That is the position that the appalling Anthony Fauci held for all those years and abused. And I'm in contact on a regular basis with Jay. I'm absolutely convinced that he's going to suspend the mRNA platform in America. They will release the record level data they've got of doses, dates, and deaths. They'll also produce the evidence of whether there's any link or not, and I think we all know there is, between autism and the childhood vaccine schedule. And that tsunami of truth will ripple across here, and it will be even the bias of our mainstream media. It will be impossible for them to ignore this information. And to be honest, who's listened to the mainstream media anyway? A couple of points going through our Parliament now. I mean, it's almost surreal. So we've got a government that announces that they're going to authorise £50 million worth of experiments with spraying in the air to dim the sun. And indeed. And this is because they've got windy. There's just so many people know that it's been going on for years. that they realise. I mean, with the vaccines, they could at least say, well, we thought they were safe and effective. When you catch them spraying chemicals on you from the air, what's the mitigation? There is no mitigation. So now they want the safety, but of course it's all being pushed by Bill Gates. This is he's straight in there, and we've got the assisted dying bill, which will pretty quickly become the compulsory dying bill, the obligation to die bill, and again, that's as if it hasn't been going on in our hospitals for the vulnerable and the elderly since at least 2020 with NG163. Pay attention if you can to the Derek Dimmock case. That's a family I've been helping for over 3 years. Derek went in to a hospice for respite care. He got dementia, but he actually went in with gout, and he was put straight onto the death pathway and killed in 3 days. That has got 8 doctors and nurses up for unlawful killing. It was set for 5 days in London. I went to 2 of the hearing days for an inquest with a coroner's court. It was so important they've had to give it another 5 days. That'll be the 11th to the 17th of August, and there are some world experts coming there to give evidence that he was involuntarily euthanized, and that's going to be an absolutely crucial case and the best chance we've got of exposing what happened in the first wave of COVID-19 and the horrors that were inflicted on our vulnerable elderly in hospital. We've got something I've been speaking about for more than 2 years and warning the country, often as a lone voice in Parliament, the WHO Pandemic Treaty Amendments to the International Health Regulations. Even though Trump's pulled out, they still seem intent. And Ursula von der Leyen, absolutely delighted to welcome this fantastic landmark of this WHO Pandemic Treaty. So Ursula von der Leyen, so in the EU, thank God we're out of it. In the EU, you've got an unelected president of the European Union giving away the sovereignty of the people to an unelected, unaccountable, non-tax-paying, immune from prosecution Director General of the WHO. The power and authority is moving so far away from the people, it's out of sight. And we must try and resist Keir Starmer signing us up to giving your sovereignty away. We're going to get onto our MPs. We've got to get onto our MPs. And at the end of the day, we're not going to comply. And they can't. Your sovereignty is your right. They can't give your rights away. You can't even give your rights away. We have rights. And of course, something else I've been talking about, which nobody wanted to hear about 2 years ago, the European Defence and Securities Union, which Keir Starmer is determined to sign this country up to. It was very clear reading the way they were talking about it, and the Conservatives are no better. They didn't want to talk about it. And when I said to 2 years ago to Nigel Farage and said, this is what's going to happen, whether Labour get in or not, they're going to try and drag us into a European Defence and Securities Union, which will give control of our Army, our Navy, our Air Force, MI5, MI6, GCHQ, our nuclear deterrent, and shockingly, our local police forces under the control of the European Union. That's the deal. No other deal on the table. And Starmer has been trying to sell it as it's a security pact. But of course he'll say, and we're not going back in, we're not going back in. What country and what chance will we ever have of securing our borders if we don't even have control of our own police force? I'll give you a little update on the Hancock case. That was some news in the last few weeks. That's now been going on for over 2 years. I'm taking him to court for defamation. He's tried 2 strikeouts in 2 years. That has delayed it by 18 months to get through those. He lost both of them. He lost one last Easter, and he lost one 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks last Monday. That was it announced. It was handed down. it's not really Matt Hancock I'm taking on. I'm taking on Big Pharma and the World Economic Forum. They're going to hold Matt Hancock up as their human shield until I've burnt through him, because they know that I'm coming after them afterwards. And there's there's a little clique in here, and it's amazing. There's so many coincidences. So many coincidences. So Hancock's barrister is a man called Aidan Earley, King's Counsel. Just happens to be the same barrister that the government, Labour government, Attorney General used to put Tommy Robinson in prison. Yeah, and this is a case of being going on for 2 years. You know, I'm sure I shouldn't be nervous, but I mean, they just promoted last year Mr. Hancock's barrister, Aidan Eardley, he's a barrister, as a part-time judge on the same bench as the judges who are sitting on the King's Bench on this case. So he will be having dinner with the judge who will decide. But despite that, we have seen him off. I've got an excellent barrister in Chris Newman, and even when you get the judgment, and I knew we'd won a couple of weeks ago, but until the judgment is handed down, I can't say anything. And then you have an order made to enforce the judgment, and that's where a lot of the horse trading goes on. Hancock's legal team tried to get the case going forward to be restricted by the court, that he could say that the evidence was that the vaccines are safe and effective, and my side, I would be banned from commenting and producing evidence that they're not safe and effective. And how did anyone think that's what they actually tried to do? Hancock also tried to pick his judge for the case we just had, and he suggested, the other side suggested Judge Nicklin. I didn't know you could choose your own judges. It's called fishing for judges, and as far as I knew, it was illegal. But I mean, that's what they tried to do, and I only saw it off because I went on TV. You might remember I was on GB News for a fleeting interview with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. We were talking about Tommy Robinson's situation. I was very critical of the judge who sent him down, because that was Judge Nicklin, the same judge, and who obviously owes Aidan Earley a favour, because Aidan Earley put Tommy in prison for breach of Nicklin's order. It's all a big club, and we're not in it, to be honest. But because I'd spoken on GB News, I was able to maintain to the court that I was extremely critical of Judge Nicklin's decision with regard to Tommy Robinson. And if were he to be the judge in this case, for me, it could have the appearance of bias, couldn't it? Just perhaps. So what I can tell you is, after 2 years, Hancock has not got a defence. He has not put in a defence of truth. That means he knows he can't rely on the fact, he can't prove that what I said was anti-Semitic. So he knew that when he called me anti-Semitic, anti-vax, anti-scientific, racist, he knew it was not true. I'm not sure I'm not, to be honest. I'm not. I don't mind what they do, but I just keep it to themselves, please. I don't want to see it. And so Hancock has got he hasn't got a defence of truth. He's not gone with a defence of truth. He can now never maintain in the case that anything he said in his tweet was true. And also, his legal team have admitted that what he said was defamatory. So he's now admitted it's defamatory, calling me anti-Semitic, and it's not true. That doesn't leave him a lot of defence. That's why he's gone for 2 strikeouts and failed. He could have settled that case originally for less money than he lost in court for that one day last month. That was his costs were 80,000. Mine were 33. And the way the court are putting pressure on me is they only gave me a cost award of 18,000 from Hancock, even though he lost on all points. It's not a level playing field. But what I'm looking forward to, and what Mr. Hancock will not be looking forward to, is him being in a witness box, being asked questions about the safety and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines, possibly before Christmas in the final hearing, being questioned by my barrister the questions that I want to ask, and I'm very convinced that before Christmas, Robert Kennedy Jr. and Jay Bhattacharya, two excellent people, will have fully exposed what went on during COVID, and that's going to be very, very uncomfortable for Mr. Hancock and a lot more cowardly politicians who knew what was going on and failed to protect the public. And I will give you a final piece of news that I'm pleased to say I'm going down to meet with Rupert Lowe on Monday in Parliament. Mark, how's my time looking? Have we got time for? Okay, questions. 10 minutes of questions. Hands up. Don't be shy.
Can I ask you a question? You mentioned about Hancock. Will he also be questioned about his massive order of midazolam? Yeah. Morphine.
Midazolam and morphine. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that the Derek Dimmock case will expose that. I'm surprised the Americans. I mean, it wasn't. It was midazolam that was used to create the first wave of COVID deaths and scare us all into taking an untested vaccine. It was midazolam in the UK. It was midazolam in Ireland. It was midazolam in Portugal, and it was midazolam in Australia and New Zealand, I think. But a lot of the rest of the world, it was remdesivir, and they used a different chemical drug in France, which I'm not quite sure what it was, because they sold us all of their midazolam, including all the out of date stuff, which they didn't mind. So I'm hoping so. The Dimmock case can expose all of that. PPE, well, that was just your common or garden fraud, wasn't it? So I mean, they bought a load of it from their mates. A load of it was probably rags anyway and no use. A lot of it was out of date and not suitable. And then they stored it in a warehouse for about a year, and it was costing millions to store it. And so then they decided to burn it all. So they burnt the evidence. And it's going to be very hard to prove once they burnt the PPE, which they've now paid for it. I mean, and I was in business for 22 years, and you don't accept goods into the factory until they've been quality controlled, and you certainly don't pay for them before you approve that what I've bought is what you're sending me. I mean, what sort of business? If you want to, I found out from a whistleblower. This is during COVID. There was a very helpful civil servant, and there are some good people in the civil service, and he was working in the track and trace. I think that was £47 billion up the wall with nothing to show for it. A lot of it was spent on consultants, and they didn't leave any reports. Which basically means if we had another pandemic and they wanted to do track and trace again, they haven't got like a manual that they've paid for. There is nothing. The money's just gone. And this civil servant, you can always tell when the civil service are nervous about things because they rotate people through every 3 or 4 months. So that when it hits the fan at the end, they'll say, well, no one was really there in the department long enough to take any responsibility. That's always what they do. And they were going through track and trace. The average duration was about 4 months for a civil servant. So they were banging them all through. By the time they'd learnt where the coffee machine was and where to put the coat, they were out of the department, and no one's really to blame. Anyway, my contact was there, and he was working in the different channels, and he was working in the ones that were the bulk PCR tests, COVID testing. So it was schools, hospitals, universities, prisons, boxes of more than 50. So not the ones to the households, the testing, but bigger ones. And he said that you sent them out, and then there was a company that went round and collected them from these schools or prisons twice a week. And schools were doing testing twice a week apparently. And this firm went and fetched them. And they were getting something like, say, £300 for a collection of this box, which would be the used tests just put back into a cardboard box and then taken to a laboratory. £300 per collection. He said, but if it doesn't get collected by 5 o'clock, they get £1,200 for an out of hours collection. He said, Andrew said, and they've given the out of hours collection contract to the same firm who've got the in hours collection. He said, and I've just analysed it. Only 51% of the collections are made before 5 o'clock. And I rang Hancock up and I said, what sort of moron would give? I thought, you weren't in business, were you, Matt? What sort of moron would give the contract for £300 to collect it as long as it's collected before 5 o'clock? And if there's a problem and it's not collected by 5 o'clock, you reward them by giving them £1,200 for an out of hours. And then you wonder why, only half of them ever get collected on time. And the whole thing was an absolute racket from beginning to end. And what I will tell you as well is there were whole lorry loads of tests, PCR tests, that were supposedly on stock in Kuehne Nagel's warehouse, because they were the distributor for the NHS, that just disappeared. And we traced some, because they all had barcodes on them, didn't they? And myself and this civil servant, we traced some of them. They just disappeared. They were on their computers 1 minute and then they were gone. Whole lorry loads. And he traced it back, and during COVID, it was something like £300 million worth of PCR tests had disappeared. Well, anyone who works in logistics, and I was a qualified transport manager, everything's scanned in and scanned out with barcodes. Nothing disappears unless the lorry turns over on the M1 and sets fire and the whole load's burnt up. Nothing disappears anymore. Can't do. And those PCR tests, which fine, let's face it, they were rubbish anyway, but you paid for them as the taxpayer. Anyway, they turned up in Berlin. They've been resold, haven't they? Been resold. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about... lady.
Thank you, Andrew. We're hearing very much that the Doge squad in America has uncovered US aid, as in a government department, and we've got the equivalent UK aid. Who is doing anything about investigating that in the UK? Are you aware of?
Well, they won't, because they're all guilty, aren't they? Of course they're not going to. I mean, which government who wanted the best for the people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, wouldn't have a Department of Government Efficiency which would look into all this waste? Well, I mean, anyone who's not looking into the waste, they don't want to. On the US aid, you may have seen that over a year ago, I went to the government and exposed the child trafficking from Ukraine into the UK. It was two Secret Service, Ukrainian Secret Service officers had given us the data. They were collecting the Ukrainian Secret Service were collecting the kids, mostly Russians, ethnic Russians from the Donbass, shipping them out to over here. The company that was in the data I gave to the government, we gave to the National Crime Agency, MI5 and Gloucestershire Police, that we believe was laundering the money and dealing everything, is a company called Comonix. It's a worldwide company. It's the biggest recipient of US aid money in the world. I believe they were running all the child trafficking all around the world, all paid for by the American taxpayer. And one of the, and they never acted on it. And one of the payments from US aid to Comonix was $6 billion in one payment. $6 billion. I think shutting that den of iniquity down is one thing, but now they've got to get in there and find out what they're actually doing, and it will horrify what was being paid for around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to win. I've decided. And remember that the darker it gets, the nearer we are to the end, and it's going to get a bit darker yet, but we are going to get there. Go on. One more.
Andrew, you're speaking in the States next weekend. Is that an indication of perhaps that you may be under a little bit of favour there, and maybe want you to share what you are actually speaking about the next weekend?
I'm afraid I've had to cancel my trip to the States. I will speak virtually to the States, to them in Florida, But there's too much going on over here. I need to sort some things out with Rupert and Ben in the next week or so. Things are going to move forward quite quickly, and we're going to have a real option moving forward. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break. So if anyone wants the toilet or the beer, don't forget to give this man a tip over here and go and see Andrew for his phone numbers, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes.